Hey, gorgeous women leaders. Look, welcome to Lunch with Chris. This is my new series where I'm going to be talking about all things career in terms of your mojo, how you communicate, how you come across either as a leader or as someone who is in a standalone role, and what you can actually do about some of the challenges that are mostly unspoken about in terms of the leadership training that you've probably done or some of the training and development that's been offered to you by your employer. So I'm really happy to be able to offer this series. I'll be coming live at about this time every day, including Saturdays and Sundays. So somewhere between 12:30 and 1:30, although I'm a little bit late today, each day. And I'd really love your questions. So please do come through and ask any questions that you have that I might be able to answer. And if I can't answer them, then I'll probably direct you to a place where we can both find out. So one of the things that I constantly, hi Lucinda, lovely to see you. One of the things that I constantly get asked by women that I coach in the corporate space is, what do I do about this loss of career drive? I'm trying really hard to get my message across, and the harder I try, the less stimulated I feel about it. And this is a common thing when we're trying to influence people and we're trying to, let's say, get approval for our initiatives or engage people more senior to us, as well as people who might report to us or our peers, and we're constantly pushing that barrow. It can feel like there's no end in sight. And it can also feel like a real challenge for us to be able to maintain our momentum and our mojo. So one of the things that I recommend for people is to look beyond the current circumstances. So it's important for you to get back in touch with what inspired you about this career that you chose. What inspired you to get into the field that you're in, into the industry that you're in? Was it the fact that you have a unique set of skills that you developed when you were younger that you really think are of value in this particular role or this particular thing that you do? Is it that you are of a particular type of person? So for instance, people that are, for instance, drawn to analytics, might be in banking and finance. They might really be stimulated by numbers. It's certainly not something that I'm into. But there are people who have a certain particular type of skills that are really valuable when applied to a particular type of role or a particular industry. So get back in touch with that. Get back in touch with that fire that was lit inside you when you were younger, and what it is that actually inspired you to get moving into this career. And really focus on that, because quite often leaving a job is not the answer. Finding somewhere else to work is not necessarily going to solve the problem for us. We sometimes think that pushing that barrow is really hard work, and I get it, it is, and I did that for a long time. As a learning and development professional, we were constantly having to prove ourselves, and even a manager of mine early on in my career said, "You're only as good as your last gig, Chris." Meaning that your last training session or your last training day or the last program that you ran is really going to determine how people perceive you going forward. And so I get how hard it can be to constantly be asking for approval or constantly be trying to put your initiatives in front of the right people or to get engagement on particular things that you're working on. And it can start to wear you down, and that's where our mojo and our momentum starts to break down. And certainly there are other things as well at play, like, the environment that you're working in and the culture that you're working within, that can also impact our mojo and momentum. But as I said earlier, leaving the job is not necessarily the answer, because wherever you go, there you are. You take with you those skills and those beliefs and those paradigms to a new employer or to a new role. So one of the things that you can do is really do get in touch with who you are as an individual and what the value is that you bring to that particular organization or that role. And start to think about it in terms of, if I was my manager, for instance, what would I be expecting of me day to day? And a good rule of thumb is they want their KPIs met, they want their targets met, and they want to be seen to be productive, effective, and low cost. So if you can help them in your role by meeting any of those objectives or all of those objectives, then you're really going to go a long way to get people to pay attention to you when it's time for you to present something or when you want an initiative passed or a new project passed. So that's a good rule of thumb, is get in touch with the value. And one thing that I teach my clients is the 3-tier value model. So it's looking at how can I raise my credibility, how can I expand my visibility, and how can I increase my earnability, in other words, my worth. So what is my value to the organization, and how can I increase my income by showing people what the value is that I bring to the organization, what the value is that I bring to the bottom line, and how I can then leverage that in order to increase my income. So that's one thing that you can do for yourself. The other thing you can do is really start to promote what it is that you do. And I have a saying that rings true, and it's something that I teach all of my clients, and that is, do what you say and say what you do. And as women, it's very difficult for us to do that because it can seem very egocentric. And men, as a rule, and I'm generalizing here, I admit that, but men as a rule have no problem saying what it is that they've achieved or what they've accomplished. But as women, we really struggle with this because it's not about, as a woman, putting yourself forward necessarily in front of others. But really, we're living in an environment where we are women who need to maintain our feminine style of leadership, but we're still competing in this very patriarchal environment where men really are the ones that have set the rules, set the systems, and we're still living by these systems and concepts and models of the industrial age. Hi Jess, glad you could join us. So it's really valuable for us to be able to look at what it is that we've achieved. And you can do this exercise as well, and it's something that I encourage my clients to do when they're going into a performance review period, for instance, or when they're going into an evaluation meeting of some sort, whether it's on the project that they've just run or some sort of time frame within their career. And look at the last 3 or 6 months or 12 months in the case of a performance review conversation. Look at that period in time and jot down all the achievements, everything you've done, everything you've moved forward, all the people you've worked collaboratively with and what they've achieved through that collaboration, how you've added value, how you've provided insight, learning and knowledge. Have you mentored anyone else? Have you provided assistance to another department that was beyond the scope of your role? Have you implemented a system or a process that has made life easier for your colleagues or your clients or your customers? Have you made suggestions that have been adapted in something on the way along the lines of health and well-being, for instance? With the current climate, you know, there's a whole bunch of people that are coming up with really innovative ways to add value to employees and the life of employees. So do a snapshot. Write down in dot form, what have you achieved in the last 3, 6 or 12 months? And start to think about going forward, how can you, each time you achieve one of those things, how can you speak it out? So how can you make people aware of it? I have another saying, and that is that we're all in sales all the time, every one of us, whether or not you are in a sales role, whether or not you're in a client-facing role is irrelevant. We are all in sales all of the time. So it's really valuable for you to learn the art of speaking about what it is that you've achieved, speaking about what it is that you do on a regular basis. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing, of course, is to find the platforms for that. So look for opportunities where you can maybe get on the agenda in a meeting, where you can talk to people about what it is that you do or what you're working on or how you've added some sort of impact or value. And that's a super easy way for you once you're once you have that platform. It's a super easy way for people to start to pay attention to what it is that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Quite often when we sit at our desk and we just do what we're told to do, it's really easy for us to be overlooked in terms of the value that we're adding. If your manager is not someone that knows how to influence and engage other people, whether it's their peers or the CEO or the C-suite, if they're not equipped with how they can actually engage and influence, you can bet your bottom dollar they're not telling other people what their team is capable of, what their team is achieving on a regular basis. So you need to be the one who puts your best foot forward. So speak to your manager or find a way to get on an agenda or to have lunch with someone who is of influence. Take a senior manager out to lunch and talk to them about what their role is in the organization, how they add value, how their team helps them to add value, and find out ways that you can speak about your work that will be accepted within the bounds of your culture. And certainly culture and understanding your culture is really important for you to be able to articulate what you do in a way that is congruent with how everybody else thinks and speaks. Certainly for women, it's a real challenge for us to do what we say and say what we do. But when you master this, when you really do master this, it becomes so much easier for you to segue into conversations then when you can start to help other people. So here's the last component, is look for ways that you can actually add value in day-to-day conversations. So when you're in the kitchenette making a cup of tea, when you're grabbing a water, filling up your water bottle, when you're walking to and from the car, or however it is that you interrelate with people, in the couple of minutes when you first come onto a Zoom meeting before everybody else comes on board, look for those opportunities when you hear someone talk about a problem that they have that you might have some insight into. Look for those opportunities to be able to add value. If somebody is struggling about their workload and it sounds like time management is a challenge for them, and you are someone who is ace at time management, then share a hint or a tip. If you know somebody is struggling with Word or Excel or some other software package that you're adept at, ask them what the particular problem is that you might be able to help with. Or you might just be someone whose brain is technically switched on. I had a friend over yesterday afternoon who helped me with this one key piece of technology that I really needed to snap into place for this morning, for my launch this morning. And just the fact that her brain works differently to mine, and she's quite technically adept, so it was so easy for her to be able to help me with that. So, and that has just saved my whole fortnight in the next 2 weeks ahead. So really just understand what it is that people are struggling with and think about how you might be able to add value. And whilst you might not be able to solve that particular issue, then you might be able to point them in the right direction or help inspire them through confidence. Quite often people just lack the confidence to be able to go out and seek the knowledge that they need to solve the problem. So if you can be there to instill some confidence in them, then that's going to go a long way for them. So that brings me to my next point, which is how you can actually feel like you're getting your mojo back and get your momentum back. If you feel less and less inspired by your job or your situation, then losing that job or moving on from that job is not necessarily the best answer. What you can do is look at different ways that you can expand your credibility, your visibility, and then in turn your earnability. So looking at the things that are demotivating for you and finding those opportunities to add value and speak about your achievements really helps to elevate you in your workplace. So what happens over time is that you become someone who is known for something in your workplace or in your team or in your organization. You become somebody who is then a go-to person for certain aspects of business. And that is what will make the difference for you. It's certainly super motivating and inspiring for people to seek you out for assistance. So instead of you feeling as though you're shrinking more and more into your own shell and losing your identity because you're in a role where you're not being seen and you're not being heard, then certainly taking steps to elevate yourself is going to really help with your motivation, inspiration, and your career mojo. So that's it from me for today. Please do send me any questions that you might have that I can answer on these lunchtimes with Chris. I'll be back between 12:30 and 1:30 every day, as I mentioned. A little bit late today, my apologies. But I look forward to bringing you more information on how you can reignite your career mojo. And speaking of, I have a new challenge that's starting on Monday the 29th of June. It's a free 5-day challenge. You'll spend about 20 minutes a day with me, Chris, in the special Facebook group. It's a private group where you can come in and learn how to start to reignite your mojo, how to promote your good work, and how to increase your earnability and attract brilliant opportunities for yourself. So I really do hope you'll join me. I'm going to pop a link in the bottom of this live. So if you're interested in joining, again, it is a free challenge, only 5 days, only 20 minutes of your time. I'll be in the group to answer all of your questions. We'll have 2 lives a day where you can connect with other like-minded women in business, and I will be there to support you and take you through the steps so that you can again start to reignite your mojo and increase your earnability. So click on the link below that I'll post shortly, and I look forward to seeing you then. See ya.